Karoline Leavitt was not your average journalist. She had worked hard to get where she was, climbing the ladder in an industry that didn't always make things easy for newcomers. Her sharp mind and fearless approach to storytelling quickly earned her a spot on The View, one of the most watched morning talk shows in the country. It was a dream come true for her, a chance to share her voice with millions of viewers every day. But dreams like these can sometimes turn into nightmares. On paper, everything seemed perfect. Karoline was sitting alongside some of the biggest names in entertainment, debating topics that mattered to people all over the nation. One of those big names was Whoopi Goldberg, a legendary actress and comedian who had been part of The View for years. Whoopi was known for speaking her mind, often without holding back. Most days, this dynamic worked well. Different opinions made the show interesting. But one particular day, things took a turn no one saw coming. It started as just another episode. The hosts were discussing a controversial topic about free speech and responsibility in media. Everyone had their say, but when it was Karoline's turn to speak, something shifted. Her comments sparked a strong reaction from Whoopi, who fired back with a biting remark. At first, Karoline tried to laugh it off, thinking it was all part of the banter that came with working on live TV. But Whoopi kept going, making a comment that cut deeper than anyone expected. The audience could feel the tension in the room, even if they didn't fully understand what was happening behind the scenes. What made matters worse was that the remark wasn't just critical, it felt personal. To Karoline, it sounded like Whoopi was questioning her integrity and professionalism, two things she valued more than anything else. She left the set that day feeling humiliated and disrespected. Friends and colleagues noticed how quiet she was after the show wrapped up. They asked if she was okay, but she brushed them off, saying she needed time to process everything. Over the next few days, the comment replayed in Karoline's mind over and over again. She couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just a slip of the tongue or a harmless joke. It was something bigger. People close to her encouraged her to let it go, reminding her that working in front of cameras meant dealing with tough moments. But Karoline couldn't ignore the nagging thought that staying silent would only validate what had happened. Was she supposed to accept being publicly attacked because of her job? That didn't sit right with her. After much deliberation, Karoline decided to take action. She consulted with lawyers, pouring her heart out about how Whoopi's words affected her personally and professionally. Together, they reviewed the situation carefully and concluded that there might be grounds for a lawsuit. It wasn't an easy decision. Suing someone as iconic as Whoopi Goldberg came with risks. Karoline knew the world would be watching, and not everyone would support her choice. Critics would call her overly sensitive or accuse her of seeking attention. But deep down, she believed she deserved justice. When the news broke that Karoline was suing Whoopi for slander, it sent shockwaves through Hollywood. Social media exploded with reactions, ranging from outrage to admiration. Some defended Karoline, applauding her bravery for standing up to a powerful figure. Others sided with Whoopi, claiming the lawsuit was unnecessary and damaging to free expression. Back at The View, producers scrambled to contain the growing controversy. They had always thrived on drama, but this was different. It wasn't scripted or planned. It was real, raw, and messy. For Karoline, the decision marked the beginning of a journey she never imagined she'd take. She went from being a rising star on a popular show to becoming the center of a national debate. Every move she made was scrutinized, every word dissected. Yet despite the pressure, she refused to back down. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about setting an example for others who might find themselves in similar situations. Little did she know, this was only the start of a story that would change her life and the future of The View forever. The lawsuit between Karoline and Whoopi didn't just stay in the courtroom, it spilled into living rooms, workplaces, and social media feeds across the country. People couldn't stop talking about it. Every morning, viewers tuned in to the Sorry. Not for the usual mix of news and entertainment, but to see how the hosts would handle the growing tension. The show's producers tried to keep things professional, steering clear of directly addressing the lawsuit on air. But the awkwardness was palpable. You could see it in the way Karoline avoided eye contact with Whoopi during commercial breaks, or how Whoopi seemed unusually quiet when certain topics came up. Audiences were divided. Some people rallied behind Karoline, calling her a hero for standing up against bullying, even if it came from someone as famous as Whoopi. They admired her courage and saw her as proof that anyone could fight back when treated unfairly. "She's not backing down," one fan tweeted. "That takes guts." Others weren't so supportive. Critics accused Karoline of being overly dramatic, saying she should have let the comment slide instead of dragging everyone into a messy legal battle. "This is why people hate cancel culture," another viewer posted online. "Can't we all just laugh at ourselves anymore?" Behind the scenes, the atmosphere at The View grew toxic. The once close-knit team of hosts now felt like strangers stuck in the same room. Conversations that used to flow naturally turned stiff and forced. Producers noticed the change too. Meetings became tense, with everyone walking on eggshells to avoid sparking another conflict. Even the crew, cameramen, sound technicians, and stagehands felt the strain. One longtime staffer later said, "It was like working in a pressure cooker. Nobody knew when the lid would blow off." As the drama unfolded, something unexpected happened. Ratings skyrocketed. More people watched The View than ever before, eager to catch any hint of tension between Karoline and Whoopi. Social media buzzed with hashtags like Pride or Team Karoline and Respect Whoopi, turning the feud into a national conversation. Memes popped up overnight, some poking fun at the situation while others took sides. For a moment, it seemed like the controversy was exactly what the show needed, a boost in popularity after years of declining viewership. But there's a fine line between good publicity and bad publicity, and The View quickly crossed it. Advertisers started pulling out, worried about associating their brands with the ongoing drama. Companies don't want their products featured alongside arguments and lawsuits. It sends the wrong message. Major sponsors began distancing themselves, leaving the show scrambling to fill the financial gap. Behind closed doors, executives debated whether the short-term spike in ratings was worth the long-term damage to the show's reputation. Meanwhile, the hosts found themselves caught in the middle of a storm they hadn't created. None of them wanted to pick sides, but neutrality wasn't an option anymore. Each appearance on the show felt like walking through a minefield. A casual joke could be misinterpreted as taking a stand, and silence might be seen as complicity. The co-hosts tried to focus on their jobs, discussing important issues and interviewing guests, but it was impossible to ignore the elephant in the room. Viewers could tell something was off, and the cracks in the foundation of The View were starting to show. For Karoline, life became a whirlwind of emotions. On one hand, she felt vindicated knowing that so many people supported her cause. Messages poured in from fans thanking her for having the courage to speak out. Strangers shared their own stories of being belittled or dismissed in professional settings, telling her she inspired them to stand up for themselves. These messages kept her going on tough days when doubt crept in. On the other hand, the backlash was relentless. Trolls attacked her online, questioning her motives and mocking her decision to sue. Some even dug into her past, trying to find anything they could use against her. It was exhausting, both mentally and emotionally. Friends urged her to step away from social media, but Karoline refused. She believed staying visible was part of holding her ground. "If I disappear now," she told a close confidant, "it'll look like I'm running away. And I'm not doing that." Whoopi, meanwhile, handled the situation in her own way. Publicly, she remained composed, continuing to host the show and make appearances without letting the lawsuit overshadow her work. Privately, however, those close to her knew she was frustrated. She had always prided herself on being outspoken, using humor and wit to tackle difficult subjects. Now she faced accusations of crossing a line she never intended to cross. Supporters reminded her that freedom of speech included making mistakes, but even they couldn't deny the toll the lawsuit was taking on her. As weeks turned into months, The ripple effects of the lawsuit spread beyond the individuals involved. Longtime fans of The View began tuning out, tired of the constant negativity. New viewers who joined because of the drama eventually lost interest too, realizing the show had become less about meaningful discussions and more about conflict. Ratings, which had initially soared, started to dip again. Executives panicked, throwing ideas at the wall to see what might stick. Special episodes, guest appearances, and themed segments, all attempts to win back audiences, fell flat. By this point, it was clear that the lawsuit wasn't just affecting Karoline and Whoopi. It was changing the fabric of The View itself. What had once been a platform for diverse voices and lively debates now felt fractured and unstable. The question on everyone's mind was simple yet daunting. Could the show survive this? Or would the weight of the controversy crush it entirely? No one had answers, but one thing was certain: the road ahead wouldn't be easy for anyone involved. The courtroom was packed on the first day of the trial. Reporters jostled for seats, cameras clicked nonstop, and spectators whispered among themselves, eager to witness history unfold. For Karoline, stepping into that room felt surreal. She had spent months preparing for this moment, rehearsing her testimony and steeling herself for whatever might come her way. Yet nothing could fully prepare her for the reality of sitting just a few feet away from Whoopi, the woman whose words had ignited this entire firestorm. From the start, the proceedings were intense. Karoline's lawyer opened with a powerful statement, laying out how Whoopi's comments weren't just hurtful, they were damaging. He argued that the remark in question wasn't a casual joke or harmless banter. It was a deliberate attack meant to undermine Karoline's credibility. The lawyer pointed to specific examples showing how the comments spread across social media and news outlets, painting Karoline as unprofessional and unworthy of respect. "This isn't just about one person," he said passionately. "It's about holding public figures accountable when their words cause harm." Whoopi's defense team countered by framing the situation differently. They claimed the comment was taken out of context, arguing that Whoopi never intended to insult or defame anyone. Her attorney emphasized her long career as a comedian and entertainer, suggesting that humor is subjective and often misunderstood. "Freedom of speech is at stake here," he declared. "If we punish people for jokes or offhand remarks, where does it end? Are we saying no one can speak freely anymore?" As both sides presented their cases, the tension in the room grew thicker. Witnesses were called to testify, including former colleagues of Karoline who spoke about her dedication and professionalism. One producer from The View described how hard she worked behind the scenes, always striving to bring fresh perspectives to the table. Another witness, a journalist who had covered the show, talked about the impact of Whoopi's comment, explaining how it overshadowed Karoline's contributions and painted her in a negative light. But the most gripping moments came when Karoline herself took the stand. Dressed simply but confidently, she recounted the day everything changed. Her voice wavered slightly as she described how the comment made her feel: humiliated, disrespected, and dismissed. She explained how it affected not only her work, but also her personal life. Friends stopped inviting her out because they feared being caught up in the drama. Family members worried about her mental health. Even simple tasks like grocery shopping became stressful, knowing strangers might recognize her and judge her based on what they'd read online. "I didn't sue because I wanted revenge," Karoline said firmly, looking directly at the jury. "I sued because I believe everyone deserves to be treated with dignity, no matter who they are or what platform they have. If someone as influential as Whoopi can make a comment like that without consequences, what message does that send to others?" Her testimony struck a chord with many in the courtroom. Some jurors nodded sympathetically, while others scribbled notes furiously. Outside, reporters scrambled to capture every detail, live tweeting updates to an audience hungry for more. Socials, media lit up once again with hashtags like "Justice for Karoline" trending worldwide. Supporters praised her courage, calling her a role model for standing up against powerful figures. Critics, however, doubled down on their accusations, labeling her lawsuit as unnecessary and self-serving. When it was Whoopi's turn to take the stand, the mood shifted. Known for her charisma and quick wit, She appeared unusually subdued. Her lawyer guided her through questions about the incident, allowing her to explain her side of the story. Whoopi admitted that her comment may have been poorly worded but insisted it wasn't meant to hurt anyone. "I've always believed in speaking my mind," she said, her tone calm but firm. "Sometimes I get carried away, and I regret that. But I would never intentionally try to ruin someone's career." Her sincerity seemed to resonate with some in the courtroom, particularly those familiar with her decades-long career. Fans flooded social media with messages defending her, pointing to her track record as an advocate for marginalized communities. "Whoopi has done so much good," one fan wrote. "Can't we forgive her for one mistake?" Others remained skeptical, arguing that intention didn't erase impact. "It doesn't matter if she meant it as a joke," another commenter replied. "What matters is how it landed, and it landed badly." As the days went on, the trial revealed cracks in the polished facade of The View. Internal emails leaked during discovery showed that producers often encouraged heated debates among hosts to boost ratings. These revelations painted a troubling picture of a network prioritizing sensationalism over civility. Both Karoline and Whoopi expressed frustration upon learning this, realizing they might have been pawns in a larger game orchestrated by executives. Public sympathy began tilting toward Karoline, who now appeared not only as a victim of slander, but also as someone manipulated by the very system she trusted. Despite the mounting evidence, the outcome remained uncertain. Jurors listened intently, weighing each argument carefully. Lawyers delivered closing statements filled with emotion, urging them to consider the broader implications of their decision. Would they side with Karoline, affirming the importance of accountability? Or would they rule in favor of Whoopi, protecting the principle of free expression? By the time deliberations began, the nation held its breath. This wasn't just a legal battle anymore. It was a cultural moment, a reflection of society's values and priorities. People debated endlessly, sharing opinions at dinner tables, in offices, and online. For Karoline, the wait was agonizing. Every hour felt like a lifetime, each tick of the clock amplifying her anxiety. For Whoopi, it was a test of resilience, forcing her to confront the possibility that her words had caused real harm. And yet, amidst all the chaos, there was a glimmer of hope. Regardless of the verdict, the trial had sparked important conversations about power dynamics, responsibility, and the impact of our words. It reminded everyone watching that even the smallest remark can carry weight, especially when spoken by someone in the public eye. As the jury disappeared behind closed doors to decide the fate of both women, one thing was clear. This case would leave a lasting mark, not just on Karoline and Whoopi, but on the world around them. The trial had already taken unexpected turns, but nothing could have prepared anyone for what happened next. Midway through the proceedings, a bombshell piece of evidence emerged that changed everything. It came in the form of internal emails from The View's production team, emails that revealed just how calculated and manipulative the show's management had been in fueling conflict among its hosts. Karoline's lawyer introduced these documents during a pivotal moment in the BOP trial. The emails showed that producers actively encouraged heated arguments between the co-hosts, often scripting debates to maximize drama. One email read, "We need more fireworks. Push them to disagree. It's good for ratings." Another suggested, tweaking discussion topics to ensure they hit sensitive nerves, knowing it would stir up emotions on camera. These revelations painted a disturbing picture. The show was less about fostering meaningful conversations and more about creating sensational moments to keep viewers hooked. When the emails were presented in court, the room fell silent. Even the judge seemed taken aback by the sheer audacity of the network's tactics. Karoline sat quietly, her face blank as she processed the implications. She had always suspected there was something off about the way certain segments unfolded, but seeing it laid out in black and white confirmed her worst fears. Whoopi, too, looked stunned. For years, she had prided herself on being authentic and unfiltered, believing her opinions mattered because they came from the heart. Now it seemed even her candor might have been exploited for profit. Outside the courtroom, the reaction was explosive. Social media erupted with outrage as screenshots of the emails circulated widely. Fans who once loved The View for its lively discussions now felt betrayed. "They've been playing us all along," one viewer tweeted. "It wasn't real. It was manufactured drama." Others expressed sympathy for both Karoline and Whoopi, realizing they weren't the villains in this story. They were victims of a system designed to prioritize ratings over respect. Back inside the courtroom, the focus shifted. What started as a personal battle between two individuals transformed into a broader critique of the entertainment industry. Lawyers on both sides adjusted their strategies, recognizing the weight of the new evidence. Karoline's attorney argued that the lawsuit wasn't just about holding Whoopi accountable. It was about exposing the toxic culture behind the scenes at The View. "This isn't about one comment or one person," he told the jury. "It's about a pattern of behavior that devalues human dignity for the sake of clicks and views." Whoopi's defense team struggled to respond. They tried to downplay the significance of the emails, suggesting that such tactics were standard practice in television. "Every talk show does this," her lawyer argued. "It's not illegal or unethical. It's just how the business works." But the damage was done. Jurors exchanged uneasy glances, clearly troubled by what they were hearing. Even some members of the public began questioning whether the entertainment industry had gone too far in chasing profits at the expense of integrity. For Karoline, the revelation brought mixed emotions. On one hand, it validated her decision to pursue the lawsuit. If the show's producers were deliberately pitting hosts against each other, then Whoopi's comment wasn't entirely her fault. It was part of a larger scheme. On the other hand, it deepened her sense of betrayal. She had joined The View, believing she was contributing to important conversations, only to discover she was being used as a pawn in a ratings game. Friends noticed a shift in her demeanor after the emails surfaced. She became quieter, more reflective, as if piecing together the full scope of what had happened to her. Whoopi, meanwhile, wrestled with her own feelings of anger and disillusionment. She had spent decades building her career on authenticity and honesty. Yet here she was, implicated in a scandal that exposed the artificial nature of the very platform she called home. In private, she confided in close friends, expressing frustration with the network executives who had allowed this toxic environment to flourish. "I thought I was speaking my truth," she said bitterly. "Turns out, I was just following their script." As the trial continued, the atmosphere grew heavier. Both women found themselves grappling with questions bigger than the lawsuit itself. Was it possible to maintain integrity in an industry driven by spectacle? Could meaningful dialogue still exist in a world obsessed with controversy? These were issues neither of them had answers to, but they lingered in the air like an unspoken tension. Public opinion began to shift again, this time in favor of Karoline. People saw her not just as someone seeking justice for herself, but as a whistleblower shining a light on a broken system. Articles and opinion pieces flooded newspapers and blogs, criticizing the entertainment industry for sacrificing ethics at the altar of profit. Some even called for boycotts of The View, urging advertisers to pull their support until the network addressed its problematic practices. Behind the scenes, the fallout was equally devastating. Executives at ABC scrambled to contain the damage, issuing vague statements about valuing respectful discourse while avoiding direct acknowledgement of the leaked emails. Hosts on the show avoided discussing the trial altogether, fearing any mention might make things worse. Ratings, which had initially surged due to the drama, began to plummet as disillusioned fans turned away. Longtime sponsors started pulling out, citing concerns about associating their brands with a program embroiled in scandal. By the time closing arguments rolled around, the case had morphed way beyond its original premise. It wasn't just about slander anymore, it was about accountability, transparency, and the moral responsibility of those in power. As Karoline listened to her lawyer deliver his final remarks, she felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. Relief because the truth was finally coming to light, and sadness because it had taken so much pain to get there. Whoopi, too, seemed introspective during her lawyer's closing statement. Her usual confidence was replaced by a quiet resolve, as if she understood the verdict wouldn't just affect her, it would send a message to the entire industry. Whether she won or lost, the damage to The View was undeniable. The show that had once been a beacon of diverse voices and lively debate now stood accused of prioritizing chaos over connection. As the jury retreated to deliberate, the nation waited anxiously for their decision. Would they side with Karoline, affirming the importance of accountability and ethical conduct? Or would they rule in favor of Whoopi, protecting free expression even in flawed systems? Whatever the outcome, one thing was clear. The trial had uncovered truths that couldn't be ignored, and its ripple effects would be felt long after the gavel fell. The courtroom was eerily quiet as the jury returned with their verdict. Everyone held their breath, waiting for the words that would define not just the fate of Karoline and Whoopi, but also the future of The View. The foreman stood up, his voice steady as he read the decision. "We find in favor of the plaintiff." Gasps filled the room. Karoline sat frozen, her eyes wide with disbelief. After months of sleepless nights, endless legal battles, and relentless public scrutiny, she had won. The judge's ruling was clear. Whoopi's comment constituted actionable defamation. While no massive monetary damages were awarded, the symbolic victory was monumental. For Karoline, it wasn't about the money. It was about proving that even someone without immense power could hold influential figures accountable. As the gavel struck the bench, signaling the end of the trial, a wave of emotions washed over her. Relief, vindication, and exhaustion all collided in that single moment. Friends who had supported her through the ordeal hugged her tightly, whispering words of encouragement. "You did it," one said softly. "You stood your ground." Whoopi handled the loss with grace, though it was evident she was disappointed. Publicly, she accepted the verdict without protest, issuing a heartfelt apology shortly afterward. In an interview days later, she admitted that the trial had forced her to reflect deeply on her actions. "I never intended to hurt anyone," she said, her tone sincere. "But intentions don't erase impact. If my words caused pain, then I'm truly sorry." Her apology resonated with many viewers, reminding them why they admired her in the first place. Her ability to own up to mistakes and grow from them. For Karoline, the win came at a cost. Winning the lawsuit didn't magically fix everything. She still carried the scars of the past months, the late-night tears, the cruel comments online, the feeling of isolation when the world seemed divided into factions rooting either for or against her. But amidst the challenges, there was clarity. This experience taught her something invaluable. Standing up for yourself doesn't mean you'll always win, but it means you refuse to stay silent when treated unfairly. And sometimes that act of defiance can spark change far beyond what you imagined. Public reaction to the verdict was mixed, as expected. Supporters celebrated Karoline's courage, calling her a symbol of resilience and justice. Social media flooded with messages praising her for taking a stand. Critics, however, remained vocal, accusing her of dragging the issue too far. Some argued that lawsuits shouldn't be the default response to disagreements, while others claimed free speech was under attack. Despite the criticism, one undeniable truth emerged. The case had ignited important conversations about accountability, respect, and the responsibilities that come with having a public platform. Behind the scenes at The View, the fallout continued to unfold. With the leaked emails exposing the show's manipulative tactics, trust between hosts and producers hit rock bottom. Several co-hosts began questioning whether they wanted to remain part of a program that prioritized drama over substance. Whispers of resignations spread throughout the network, adding another layer of uncertainty to the already shaky foundation of the show. Ratings, which had initially spiked due to the controversy, plummeted as disillusioned fans turned away. Advertisers followed suit, pulling millions in sponsorship deals. ABC executives scrambled to salvage what was left, holding emergency meetings to brainstorm solutions. In the weeks following the verdict, rumors swirled about major changes coming to The View. Speculation ranged from replacing key hosts to rebranding the entire format. One producer reportedly suggested shifting the focus back to meaningful discussions rather than manufactured conflicts, hoping to rebuild trust with audiences. But damage control is easier said than done. Once the illusion of authenticity is shattered, it's nearly impossible to piece it back together. Viewers who had once tuned in daily now avoided the show altogether, opting instead for programs that felt genuine and unscripted. Karoline quietly stepped away from the spotlight after the trial ended. She declined interviews and avoided social media, choosing instead to focus on rebuilding her life away from the chaos. Close friends revealed she spent time reflecting on the journey, processing everything she had endured. Writing became her outlet, a way to channel her thoughts and experiences into something constructive. Months later, she announced plans to publish a memoir detailing her rise to prominence, the lawsuit, and the lessons she learned along the way. Fans eagerly awaited its release, knowing it would offer insight into a story that transcended personal grievances and touched on universal themes of fairness and integrity. Whoopi, too, took steps to reinvent herself. Recognizing the need for change, she scaled back her appearances on The View, focusing instead on smaller projects that allowed her to connect authentically with audiences. She hosted intimate talk shows and podcasts where open dialogue replaced scripted arguments. These efforts earned her renewed admiration, proving that even legends can evolve when faced with adversity. Off-screen, she became more mindful of her words, understanding the weight they carried when spoken by someone in her position. As the dust settled, both women found themselves forever changed by the experience. For Karoline, it was a reminder of the importance of self-respect and speaking out against injustice even when the odds seem insurmountable. For Whoopi, it underscored the value of empathy and caution, urging her to think twice before making comments that might unintentionally harm others. Though their paths diverged after the trial, neither forgot the lessons they had learned. Meanwhile, The View struggled to regain stability. Attempts to revamp the show fell flat, failing to recapture the magic of its earlier years. Eventually, executives made the difficult decision to put the program on an indefinite hiatus. Fans mourned the loss of a beloved institution, blaming greed and mismanagement for its downfall. Yet within the tragedy lay a silver lining, a wake-up call for the entertainment industry to prioritize ethics over exploitation. Years later, people still talked about the case. It became a cautionary tale about the dangers of chasing profit at the expense of principle. Karoline's courage inspired countless individuals to stand firm in their convictions, while Whoopi's humility reminded everyone that growth often comes from discomfort. Together, their clash served as a mirror, reflecting both the flaws and potential of media, and leaving behind a legacy that continues to shape conversations today. The aftermath of the lawsuit hit The View like a tidal wave, leaving destruction in its wake. What had once been a beloved staple of daytime television now felt like a sinking ship. The show's executives tried desperately to patch things up, but the cracks ran too deep. Ratings continued to plummet, advertisers kept pulling out, and morale among the cast and crew reached an all-time low. It wasn't just about losing viewers, it was about losing trust. For years, fans had tuned in because they believed the conversations were real, raw, and unfiltered. Now, with leaked emails proving otherwise, that illusion was shattered. Behind the scenes, tension brewed constantly. Hosts who remained on the show found themselves walking on eggshells, unsure of what to say or how to act. Debates lacked energy, as everyone feared another comment might spark another controversy. Producers grew increasingly frustrated, pushing harder for hosts to bring back the drama. But it felt forced and unnatural. Even loyal fans noticed the change. Social media lit up with complaints. "It's not the same anymore," one viewer tweeted. "They're trying too hard." Another added, "I miss the old days when it felt authentic." One by one, key figures began leaving the show. Some cited creative differences. Others admitted they no longer felt comfortable working under such strained conditions. A longtime host announced her departure during a live episode, choking back tears as she thanked the audience for their support over the years. "This has been my home for so long," she said, her voice trembling. "But sometimes, even homes need rebuilding." Her exit made headlines, further fueling speculation about the show's uncertain future. As departures mounted, rumors swirled about major shakeups within the network. Executives at ABC scrambled to find solutions, holding endless meetings to brainstorm ways to revive The View. Some suggested bringing in fresh faces, new hosts who could inject life into the program. Others proposed rebranding entirely, shifting away from debates and toward more lighthearted segments. But none of these ideas gained traction. Audiences weren't interested in quick fixes. They wanted authenticity, something the show seemed incapable of delivering after everything that had happened. By this point, the writing was on the wall. Despite desperate attempts to save it, The View couldn't recover from the damage done. In a somber press release, ABC announced that the show would go on an indefinite hiatus. After much consideration, the statement read, "We've decided to take a step back and evaluate the direction of The View. We are grateful to our incredible team and loyal viewers for their support throughout the years." The announcement sent shockwaves through Hollywood. Fans mourned the loss of a show that had been part of their daily routines for decades. Many took to social media to share memories of favorite moments, expressing gratitude for the laughter, tears, and thought-provoking discussions the program had provided over the years. For those who worked on The View, the hiatus marked the end of an era. Crew members packed up their gear, producers cleared out their offices, and hosts prepared for new chapters in their careers. There was sadness, yes, but also relief. The toxic environment that had plagued the show for months, finally, lifted, giving everyone space to breathe again. One stagehand later described the mood as bittersweet. "It's heartbreaking to see something you love fall apart," he said. "But at the same time, maybe this is what needed to happen. Maybe it's time for something new." In the months following the hiatus, former hosts and staff reflected openly about their experiences. Interviews revealed a mix of frustration and gratitude. While many criticized the network's handling of the situation, they also expressed pride in the work they'd done. "We brought important issues to the forefront," one former host said. "Even if the show stumbled in the end, I hope people remember the good we accomplished." Another producer echoed similar sentiments, acknowledging the flaws while celebrating the positives. "No show is perfect," she admitted. "But for a long time, The View gave a platform to voices that mattered. That's something worth remembering." Meanwhile, the entertainment industry as a whole grappled with the lessons learned from The View's downfall. The trial and subsequent revelations exposed deeper issues within the business, a culture obsessed with ratings, sensationalism, and profit at any cost. Writers, producers, and executives began questioning whether the pursuit of clicks and views had gone too far. Articles and panel discussions explored ways to prioritize ethics and integrity without sacrificing entertainment value. Some networks even implemented changes, vowing to create content that balanced engagement with responsibility. For Karoline, watching The View fade into history was both satisfying and sobering. On one hand, she felt vindicated knowing her lawsuit had played a role in exposing the show's flaws. It proved that standing up against injustice could lead to real change. On the other hand, she couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness. She had joined the show with high hopes, eager to contribute to meaningful conversations. Seeing it crumble reminded her of how fragile dreams can be when built on shaky foundations. Karoline used this period to focus on healing and moving forward. She spent time reconnecting with loved ones, rediscovering hobbies she'd neglected. During the chaos of the trial, writing became her primary outlet, allowing her to process everything she'd been through. Her memoir, which detailed her journey from aspiring journalist to plaintiff in a high-profile lawsuit, struck a chord with readers. It wasn't just a personal story. It was a reflection of broader societal issues, touching on themes of accountability, resilience, and the power of speaking truth to authority. Critics praised her honesty and vulnerability, calling the book a must-read for anyone navigating challenges in their own lives. Whoopi, too, embraced a quieter chapter in her career. Without the constant grind of producing daily episodes, she found time to explore projects close to her heart. She launched a podcast where she interviewed everyday people about their struggles and triumphs, creating a space for genuine connection. Listeners appreciated the authenticity she brought to each conversation, saying it felt like sitting down with an old friend. Off-screen, she remained reflective, using her platform to advocate for kindness and understanding. Words matter, she often reminded her audience. Let's choose them wisely. Though The View disappeared from television screens, its legacy lived on. It served as a cautionary tale about the dangers of prioritizing profit over principle, a reminder that audiences crave authenticity above all else. And while the show itself may have ended, the conversations it sparked continued to ripple through society, inspiring change in unexpected ways. For Karoline and Whoopi, the experience marked the beginning of new journeys, one defined by resilience, the other by growth. Together, their clash left an indelible mark on the world, proving that, even in conflict, there's potential for transformation. Years passed, and the dust finally settled on what had once been one of the most talked about scandals in media history. Life moved forward for everyone involved, but the echoes of that time lingered in different ways for each person. For Karoline, it became a chapter she could look back on with pride, a story not just about survival but about growth. Winning the lawsuit hadn't erased the challenges she faced, but it gave her something far more valuable: clarity. She realized that standing up for herself wasn't just about seeking justice. It was about setting boundaries and refusing to let others define her worth. After stepping away from the spotlight, Karoline poured her energy into writing. Her memoir quickly climbed bestseller lists, resonating with readers who saw themselves in her struggles. The book wasn't just a recounting of events. It was a deeply personal reflection on resilience, vulnerability, and the courage it takes to fight for what's right. Fans packed auditoriums during her speaking tours, eager to hear her insights on navigating adversity. One attendee summed it up perfectly. She didn't just win a case, she inspired us all to stand taller when life tries to push us down. Karoline also found joy in mentoring young journalists. She traveled to colleges and workshops, sharing her experiences and encouraging students to stay true to their values in an industry often driven by clicks and controversy. Don't let anyone tell you your voice doesn't matter, she'd say, her tone firm yet warm. Speak your truth even if it scares you, especially if it scares you. Watching these aspiring writers light up with determination reminded her why she had entered journalism in the first place: to make a difference. For Whoopi, the years after the trial brought a quieter kind of transformation. She never stopped working, but she shifted her focus toward projects that aligned with her passions. Her podcast grew into a beloved platform where people felt safe sharing their stories without judgment. Whether interviewing activists, artists, or everyday individuals overcoming hardships, Whoopi approached every conversation with genuine curiosity and empathy. Listeners praised her ability to create connections, saying it felt like she truly listened rather than performing for an audience. Off-screen, Whoopi became more intentional about using her influence responsibly. She spoke openly about learning from past mistakes, urging others to do the same. During a charity gala honoring women in entertainment, she delivered a speech that left the room in silence. "We're all human," she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "We mess up, we hurt people, but the measure of our character isn't whether we fall. It's whether we get back up and try to do better." Those words stuck with many, becoming a mantra for self-improvement. As for The View, its absence created a void in daytime television that no other show quite filled. While some networks attempted copycat programs, none captured the unique mix of personalities and perspectives that had defined the original. Former fans occasionally reminisced about iconic moments, the heated debates, the laughter, the tears, but they also acknowledged the cracks beneath the surface. It was fun while it lasted, one viewer commented online. But maybe it ended when it needed to. Sometimes things have to break before they can be rebuilt. The entertainment industry, too, underwent subtle shifts in the years following the scandal. Networks began reevaluating how they balanced ratings with responsibility. Writers' rooms started prioritizing authenticity over shock value, recognizing that audiences craved real connections more than manufactured drama. Slowly but surely, a new standard emerged, one that valued ethics alongside entertainment. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. Both Karoline and Whoopi reflected on the lessons they'd learned from their clash. For Karoline, it reinforced the importance of integrity and self-respect. She carried those principles into every aspect of her life, from her career to her relationships. For Whoopi, it underscored the weight of words and the need for empathy. She made a conscious effort to think twice before speaking, knowing her voice carried power. Though their paths never crossed again, there was a mutual understanding between them, an unspoken acknowledgement that they had both grown through the experience. In many ways, the story of Karoline and Whoopi came full circle. What began as a bitter feud evolved into a shared legacy of resilience and redemption. Their journey served as a reminder that conflict, no matter how painful, can lead to meaningful change. It challenged society to reflect on issues like accountability, respect, and the responsibilities that come with having a platform. And it proved that even in the messiest moments, there's potential for healing and growth. Years later, when asked about her thoughts on the ordeal, Karoline smiled softly. "I wouldn't wish that kind of stress on anyone," she admitted. "But I'm grateful for what it taught me. It showed me that standing up for yourself isn't easy, but it's always worth it." Whoopi echoed similar sentiments in an interview, saying simply, "Life is messy, people are messy, but if we can learn from our mistakes, then maybe we're doing okay." And so the tale of The View's downfall, and the lives forever changed by it, became more than just a headline or hashtag. It became a testament to the strength of the human spirit, a reminder that even in the face of chaos, we have the power to rise above. For Karoline, Whoopi, and countless others touched by the story, it was proof that endings can give way to new beginnings, and that sometimes breaking apart is the first step toward building something stronger.